pattern to it. Now what I'm going to do here, I've stripped this back, and the way you do that is you hold it here and you just peel it off that way. I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to clip the quill right there. Now, of course, the base of the feather, quill's thicker, thinner towards the tip. So what we want to do is take the thinner end of it and we're going to wind our tying thread back to the tail. And we're going to stick this right underneath here and catch it, usually with just a quick little loop like that, and start to bind it down. Now there's several different schools of thought on this. You can take the quill, a lot of guys like to just dip it in some water and moisten it up to make it a little more pliable so that it doesn't have a tendency to break on you. If your hackle feathers are good quality and they're not old, you haven't had them laying around a long time, usually there's enough oiliness to them that they'll stay flexible. We'll see how this one works. I'm not big on dipping them in the water because I'm usually using some sort of head cement under here, and I don't want to wind a wet hackle stem over the top of a head cement. What I like to do in here is put just a little head cement right on these threads and up here to the base of the post right here. From here I'm going to go ahead and wind my thread, just bring it up to the front right at the base here, and I'm going to start to wind this stem one wrap right after the other, right next to each other, and continue to wind it forward all the way up to the center. Now there's a lot of different ways to tie a parachute, and everybody's got their favorite, and I do them in several different ways. This is just one way. Okay, come in here and I'm going to go ahead and catch it with one wrap here underneath here. And I'm going to let that stem kind of go forward instead of making a real hard bend in it right there. And I'm going to wind it down right here. Now if you like, at this point, you can double this back like this. You can tie it in here and then clip it, and you can make some antenna that go forward. For this one, we're just going to clip it off like this. We're trying to keep this one a little simple. And then we're going to wind back. Okay, now we have our post standing up. Now I've kind of pre-selected a hackle feather. For the particular size fly that you're working on, say if you're using a 16 and you think you want a hackle feather that normally on a 16 would stand up about like this, for a parachute we'd like it probably to be about 1.5 times that size. So what I usually do is I look in the side here, and the hackles that we usually use for the parachute are some of the spade kind of hackles on the side, the ones that have a natural curve to them. Now, like I say, you can use different ones, and different people do different things different ways, and I don't think that you should really consider that one is necessarily wrong. It's just different. What I've done here is selected a feather, and you can see you want the really pretty quill, the barb part of the feather is what you want. You don't want this fuzzy stuff down in here. The fuzzy stuff really soaks up water, the webbing. So what we want to do is work it in here, find where that webbing starts to pick up, and we're going to strip it just like this by pulling it back and strip from under and on top like that. Now, if this is a long feather off of a saddle hackle, which is what I'm using here, if it was a very long feather, you could save all this portion, and it's good for working on woolly boogers and things of that sort, where you really don't care and actually prefer if it soaks up the water. Now the hackle feather, you'll notice has got a natural curve to it. Now you can tie it this way so that the hackle bristles down, or you can tie it upward. I prefer it to be tied this way. That way the fibers are sticking down and it helps to support the fly. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come right at the base of the post, and I want to come over the top of the hook, and I'm going to bind that in just like that. So what we want to do is tie this right at the post, and then I usually wind forward over the stem a bit. You remember a second ago you had the quill coming out. If you want to, you could leave that first quill sticking out, and then you can leave the quill from the second feather, or the second quill, you can leave that as the other antenna if you want to. If you want to do antennas. Okay, now that this is tied in, I want to wrap it in a horizontal fashion like this. So I'm going to come back to here and get my good hackle pliers, and the first wrap I'm just going to go spirally right directly horizontal around the base. Then I'm going to take the feather down so that it'll come underneath the previous wrap, and bring it down and over and just up underneath. Each time I'm winding underneath where I went before. And occasionally it's good, you need to hold the post a little bit sometimes to give yourself a good tug here. Come around like that, come over, come around, and over. Okay, there's always a point to stop. Okay, sometimes you can make this a little brushier if you want. You can make it a little sparse if you want. I'm going to stop right there. Now I like to drop the hackle feather here and take my tying thread, and see it's been laying there, so I can just swing it right over it this way. Reach up over the eye of the hook and catch it like that. Now you can take your fingers and you pull all these fibers back and it'll allow, but if I do that you can't see it. So I'm going to come in here, each wrap I'm going to come right underneath and just over the eye of the hook, and then I'm going to pull it back. After I've caught that a couple times, I'll go ahead and wrap over it again, pull it back. Okay, after I've got about 3 good wraps to catch it, in order to keep all this from getting caught up in my thread when I'm trying to finish off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my scissors up the stem of the feather and clip it like that. Sometimes you've got a few fibers caught underneath that you want to get rid of. If you do, you just kind of clean them up. You got to be careful while you're doing that you don't get your tying thread. Catching your tying thread at this point is a very bad thing. Okay, come in here, come up here. See, when I pull this up, if I just went straight over, I'm going to catch all these fibers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it right here and just come in and over like that. Come in here, just like that. Come up, catch it here, come in like this. Now a lot of people have different ways of finishing right here. One of my favorite things to do, once I've got about